Hi, this is Rabbi Tzvi Mandel of Kahal B'nai Yisrael, community of Jewish friends, and I'm overjoyed to start the second chapter of Perkei Avos, chapters of our ancestors. What do we say? So the Mishnah begins as follows. First we'll say it in Hebrew, then we'll go through the commentary. Rebbe Yomer, Rebbe was, and there's a lot to speak about Rebbe Yehuda Anasi, the great Rebbe Yehuda, the prince, who perhaps put together all the Mishnayos of the whole Talmud, or others hold he didn't put it together, it was put together before, but he just made an order, a Seder, but whatever it is. He was so great, Rebbe Yehuda Anasi, that he had both worlds, this world and the other world, and that, in other words, he was a very rich person and supported whole communities of Talmid Chacham. And end result was, before he passed away, he raised his 10 hands and said, Hashem, you know I didn't have any pleasure of this world for myself. Very special, high level. And he never put his hand lower than his gartel, lower than his belt. He's a very holy person. That's why he's called Rabbeinu HaKadosh on one world, on one level, like Judaism is. We're very involved in this world as much as a human being has to be. Everything normal and healthy. In the other world, we're not engrossed in this world. Our minds, our hearts, and our neshamas are on a different level. And that's what this Mishnah is going to speak about. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi says, Ezohi derech yishar, what is the straight way that a person should pick? So we'll go over it in Hebrew, and then we'll explain it and speak out some interesting commentaries. Kol she'teferes lo yiseha, anything that's beautiful for the one that does it, for teferes lo min ha'adam, and human beings think it's beautiful. Next thing, v'havazaya, you should be careful b'mitzvah kala k'vachamura, to do even what seems to be an easy mitzvah, just like you're careful about doing mitzvahs that are harder mitzvahs to do. Next, why? So he said, she'einat ha'idea matan scharin shal mitzvahs, because you don't know how much reward we get for mitzvahs. In other words, so you can't say, this is easy, that's hard, but which one is important or not important, because the Torah doesn't tell us how much is given for this mitzvah and how much is given for that mitzvah. Next thing, we have a mechashiv hefsed mitzvah, keneged scharim. If your evil inclination or your surrounding atmosphere would say to you, and you have a feeling that you lose so much by doing the mitzvah rather than how much you gain, it's not like that. The mitzvah is better, pays better. And if you want to do a sin, God forbid, and you know that it feels good or it tastes good, whatever it might be, don't forget how much you're going to lose from that. And the last thing he says is that you should see three things, which will hold you back from sinning. You should know who or what is on top of you. Hashem is always there. He's looking at you. He loves you. He's never, ever stopping to try to do good for you. Ayin Raya, an eye, so to see, doesn't mean a human eye. It means just for us humans to understand, it's as if an eye is always seeing what you're doing, and an ear always hears and always loves to hear everything that you have to say. So do it the right way, and Hashem is overjoyed to see that and hear that. And everything that you do is written in a book up there. In fact, you yourself write the book about yourself, it says. And let's go over the Mishnah now. What is the straight way that a person should choose? There's so many different ways of doing the right thing, right? Even within Yiddishkeit. So which one is the best for you and me? So the Mishnah says, Kol shi teferes lo yisev teferes lo min ha'adam. So the Bartanura explains it as follows. The basic commentary on the Mishnah, he says like this: everything in Yiddishkeit is the middle way. The middle way is the best way. The holy Maimonides, the Rambam calls it the Shvil Hazav, the golden path. A person's too cheap, so he doesn't give charity, so the poor people don't like it. The person gives too much charity and doesn't leave enough for himself, so then his family and himself, he doesn't have what to eat. So we go in middle. We give charity, and we give it with a full heart and happily, but as much as a person can give. Normal and healthy is a very big line in Judaism. We don't believe in doing things extreme. We are always cognizant and joyous that Hashem is watching over us and loves us and interested in us doing the right thing. But we're not a religion that believes that God is always standing with a knife and ready to praise me forever and ever. There's no such thing by us, because there's no ever and ever. Yid can always do tshuva. Even the angels can't do tshuva, like we just experienced on Shavuos, that one of the things that Moses said to the angels, that the Torah is not for them, because could you do tshuva? No, an angel doesn't do tshuva. An angel just stays in one place, doesn't grow, doesn't become better, doesn't become worse. He just does what Hashem wants. And that's not such a great thing, because we sin and do tshuva. And it makes us grow higher and better each time we do tshuva and become higher and better people. Doesn't mean a person should sin in order to do tshuva. Then it's not so simple whether the tshuva is a good tshuva. But here, we grow. Just like we grow from a child to an adult, so too spiritually we grow. So the best way how to grow is middle of the road. No extremism. And one should be careful. B'mitzvah kala k'vachamura, an easy mitzvah, to do it with as much fervor, zriza, simcha, and joy. Like one's doing a hard mitzvah, Yom Kippur, when you're fasting and you're davening to Hashem, you're praying with all your heart and you're so much further. So too, on a regular day, when you say good morning to your neighbor, say it with the same amount of fervor and joy. Or whatever the mitzvah might be. Make a bracha with joy and simcha and joy. Okay, next thing is because you don't know how much God pays for the mitzvahs. So the simple interpretation is that the Torah doesn't say. The Torah says if someone transgresses, there are different punishments that should be given by the Torah court, but not about the mitzvahs. Next thing is the Mishnah says that whatever you're going to lose for doing your mitzvah, whether it's from your money or from your business, always think about the reward in the next world, which is much, much more. You don't worship Hashem in order to receive reward, but if a person's having a hard time and the evil inclination is bothering him, or the atmosphere where he lives in bothers him, then he should always know that there's another place that the mitzvahs that we do and the good things that we do is evaluated on in those terms rather than what you see in this world. And the last thing he says is that you should always see or think these three things. Thinking is like seeing because it's in your mind. And the Rebbe Melech says in Naim Melech that to fear something, one could fear even something that he never saw in his life, because you can imagine it. And this world is full of all kinds of fears and negativities. A person turns on the TV, see all kinds of horrible things. Hopefully we don't turn on the TV. But good and seeing eternity, this every person can imagine in his mind, because there's always good. And before we came to this world, we saw the good and the joy and the simcha of paradise and all the beautiful tzaddikim and zaydis and bubbas from thousands and thousands of years, the bliss of the other world. And this really stays with us in our minds and in our hearts, and brings out the ahava musuteres, the hidden love between Hashem and us and Hashem in reverse. Yeah, so that these three things we should always think of in a very positive and joyous way. Hashem is always looking at us, his ears, so to say, is always hearing, and everything is always written down. The Taisus Yontiv goes into this whole thing about that we find that we say every day after the blessings on the Torah that these are the things that you get reward in this world, only a little bit of it, but the main reward is for the next world. So you see, it does say. So he says, yeah, but there's a difference between quality and quantity. Yeah, we know that you get more for this and more for that, but the actual amount that we get and the bliss that there is something that we don't see in this world. And it's called matan scharan shel mitzvahs. Matan means a present, matana. Scharan means reward, meaning that is for doing mitzvahs and for doing the right thing and having the right perspective, the reward is always much, much more than you could imagine, and much, much more than you did for God, God does for you. So there's always matana, the present. We just came out of Shavuos, we said, Chag HaShavuos Hazeh, in the Amida and the Shmoneh, we say Chag HaShavuos Hazeh Zman Matan Torah, saying that the Torah is a present. A present, when you give your friend a present, you put it in a nice box and you tie it around and you write something nice on it. And till the person opens it, all they know about the present is that you love them. Same thing with the mitzvahs, that the mitzvahs and the reward for mitzvahs are so high and so special that there's always it's more of a surprise and more joy than you could ever imagine. The reward for the mitzvah and how much a person pays for a mitzvah, a person never knows. And barely we know how to do the mitzvah and the right preparation and how to do it on our level, but how deep it is. The famous story with Ramot Chachanabala, he was a very, very poor person and a great, great tzaddik, a rebbe with thousands of chassidim, and was involved in helping so many people. And he was especially involved with the hidden tzaddikim. But anyway, so he always, it came Sukkot time, he couldn't afford an esrig, right, the 4 species. And so what he did was he used to, every week, he saved a couple of pennies. When it came 50 weeks, it came to Sukkot, so he went out and bought a beautiful, beautiful esrog with that money, brought it home, and put it in a place. And his wife says, "What's that? What you got? What's that?" He says, "Well, it's something I need." He knew he was going to get it over his head. Anyway, so she says, "Let me see what that box is." She opens the box and says, "What? How much did this cost you?" And he told her the amount, and she said, "What? You barely have what to eat. Your kids are starving, and you spend X amount of money for an esrog?" She took it and she bit it, which makes it an unkosher esrog. And he just stood there and smiled. He said, "Hashem, every year I try to give you an esrog, do an esrog, hida mitzvah, a most beautiful esrog, halachically and in beauty. Esrog is supposed to be very beautiful. But this year I'm giving you the best esrog. One that I held in from getting angry at my wife. This is the best mitzvah." We'll go a little bit more into some of the beautiful ideas that are brought out from this mitzvah. the Heilige Baal Shem Tov teaches us from this mitzvah, from this Mishnah, which is the straight mitzvah, the straightest way that a person can do a mitzvah, the best way, as we said, the middle way. So he says is when when a person thinks that the mitzvah is a beautiful mitzvah, if he thinks that's a beautiful mitzvah, and he thinks he's this great worshiper of Hashem, and that God owes him everything, then you should know that's not the way to do it. And he translates the word sheyaver loy ha'adam, which means you should choose to mean sheyimna, a person should hold himself back, lashon reikus, that's an empty person. An empty person thinks that he's doing God big favors, and that what he does, it's a great thing. So one has to know that the mitzvahs that we do and the learning and davening that we do, and even the mitzvahs between man and man, and being friendly and good to others and ourselves and to even all kinds of people, this is all to give nachas ruach to Hashem, so that God should have pleasure from it. And we're always concentrating on that love between God and us and God, and that's why we do the mitzvahs. Not to think that we're so great because we're doing it. And he says further, he says, "V'zoya b'mitzvah kalach kavachamura." So the word zohar means to be careful, but zohar could also mean like the Zohar. The Elker Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says that his book is going to lighten up the whole world. Zohar means to light up. The mitzvahs light up the whole world and all the worlds and the future for and ever and ever and ever. So on one hand, though we know, and we don't hold ourselves for such great people, we're humble, but the actual doing of the mitzvah, Hashem is telling us, He's promising us that the more tamim, the more tamimistic, the more humble and wholesomeness we do the mitzvah, the more it lights up the world forever and ever. And he says something unbelievable, that the Gemara says, that the Talmud says, in Nida Samachalaf Amabeis, the Talmud says that when Mashiach is going to come, mitzvahs are going to become nullified. What does that mean? So the student of the Baal Shem Tov says in the name of the Baal Shem Tov himself, or in the names of the Ramban, he didn't remember which one, that he says as follows, that when Mashiach is going to come, we will see the real beauty of the mitzvahs and how it shines and shined this world and all the worlds, ourselves, and everything and anything that Hashem created. But they're not going to be called mitzvahs anymore, because a mitzvah means that you're commanded, that you have to do it. At that time, the world is going to be such that everyone is going to be running to do mitzvahs. And everyone will know all the secrets of the mitzvah, and it'll have such a great value. So that's why we don't know the reward of the mitzvahs. We're not talking about the reward that one gets in the next world or in this world. We're talking about the true value of the mitzvah that we won't even know until after the end of time, after Messiah comes, after Mashiach comes. I have to tell you, and you'll be able to guess my age, during the 6-Day War in Israel, there was such an unbelievable awakening for Yiddishkeit. There were people running into shuls and yeshivas. How do I daven? How do I put on tefillin? How do I... And my father had a friend, Father Zechem had a friend of his, Herschel Rosenblatt, his name was, yeah. And they were like partners. He was in Israel and he was in America. They did business together. And he called up my father and he said, Reb Pinchas, go right to Kronite to the Lubavitch Rebbe, because they say he loves Yidden so much, he loves all the Jewish people. Tell him right now to come to Israel, because there's so much work to be done. Whoever's going to be bringing all these holy brothers and sisters of ours that never knew much, they sadly enough, they had no upbringing, they're all running around looking to do mitzvahs because of the miracles that we had in those 6 days. Unbelievable. tractors turning over before they ran over people, and all kinds of open miracles. Open miracles. That's another thing. There's another very beautiful idea also from the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. Shem Tov says that the reason why we don't have an idea in this world the worth of a mitzvah. So he gives a beautiful parable. He says, let's say there's the most beautiful view, the most beautiful mountain, and early morning sunrise, and it would be beautiful to look at, and we know that brings us Yiras HaRaimus, Avos Hashem, love of Hashem, and fear of Hashem's exaltedness. The beauty of His servants is so great. So we have no idea how much more beautiful is the Creator, which of course we can't even think about that. What if somebody would go out and see all this, but he doesn't see it because he has something in his hand. He has a coin in his hand, and he can't get over this coin. Wow, it's such a beautiful coin. So the coin is blocking him from seeing the most beautiful natural sight that could be seen. Says the Holy Baal Shem Tov. That's exactly what's going on with us. We have so little idea about spiritualism, about Hashem, about the Torah. As much as we learn and study, the more we learn and study, the less we know. The less we study, the more we think we know, and that's why so many people are lost to the foolishness and the lewdness and all the pleasures of this world, because they really don't want to, or they probably more, they were never brought up like that, and it's our job to try to make it more accessible and possible for them to go on the right path. There's a very beautiful Neitz Chesed over here, the Helik Kaman, and he says something very beautiful. He says in the name of the Lublina, the Chayza of Lublin. Everybody knows the Chayza of Lublin, the Seer of Lublin. The reason why he was called the Chayza of Lublin, the Seer, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak of Lublin, because he saw from one end of the world to the other. He used to say that on Rosh Chodesh, every new month, he would see everything that's going to happen the next whole month. And occasionally he would tell his students in Chassidim. Anyway, so the Holy Chayza, the commander brings the Holy Chayza, he says as follows. He says, each person and each tzaddik has a different way of worshiping Hashem. One person loves to learn, is deeply into learning, and it's unbelievable. He's like fire learning. The next one is very busy helping people. We have today whole groups of people, the Chaverim, the Hatzalah, all kinds of groups doing all kinds of unbelievable, beautiful things. And there's a third person that not so much into both of these things. He's doing other mitzvahs. He's very involved in Shabbos. And each one of them is very special. So that if a person says, which is the straight and right way to go, as we said, a person that has a feeling towards one way, that's what your Sherish HaNeshama is. That's your tikkun, that's the root of your neshama, where you come from, and that's your fixing. So go and do it and make it great. That's the first Leimina Adam. The person himself feels that it's beautiful to do this mitzvah, so he's going to do it more and more, and he's encouraged to do so. But also, Tif'as Min Ha'adam, the other person who chose a different way how to worship Hashem, that's also beautiful. Don't minimize the beauty of his mitzvah as well. So if you appreciate yours and his way of worshiping Hashem, that's the straight, healthy, normal, spiritual way how to worship Hashem. And we find so many great tzaddikim that the way they blended in and appreciated each other, even though one's way could be as far as from east to west or north to south, of the end of the world, but they appreciate each other, and that's the right way how to worship Hashem. Okay. Have a good night.